Happy Wednesday to you, or whatever day it is that you're watching this video. I hope that you are doing well this week and that you've had a great week so far. Let's look today at problems from sections 2.4 and 2.5. Hopefully this will be mostly a review for you as we're talking about lines. So number one, we are asked to find the slope. In part A, we're given 2 points, the point -3, 8, and the point 0, 10. Now remember, we do have two formulas for slope. One is rise over run, which we'll talk about later in this video, and the other is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Label your points x1, y1, x2 and y2, and then fill into your formula. So y2 is 10, y1 is 8, x2 is 0, and x1 is -3. 10 minus 8 is 2, and 0 minus -3 is 3. And so our slope in part A is 2/3. In part B, we're asked to find the slope of a horizontal line. And we're given a point, but we really don't need that point. A horizontal line always has a slope of 0. The reason a horizontal line has a slope of 0 is a horizontal line runs from left to right. And if we think about slope as rise over run, this line never rises and it does run, and 0 over any number is always 0. Part C asks us to find the slope of a vertical line. And again, we're given a point, but we really don't need that point because the slope of a vertical line is always undefined. The reason why is this. If I think about my vertical line, it's straight up and down. My slope I can think of as rise over run. And this line definitely rises, so I can count up or down. But this one does not run. The run is left or right. And anytime you have a number over 0, that is undefined. Number 2 asks us to write equations of lines. In part A, we have the point 1, 2, and we are going to be parallel to the line 4x plus 5y equals 20. And we want to write our answer in standard form. So a couple of things to review. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. In standard form, there are no fractions, no common factors, and a must be positive. It could be 0 depending on the type of line, but a has to be positive. To write the equation of a line, I need a point and a slope. My slope comes from the information here where I'm told that the line is parallel to a given line. So my given line is a line 4x plus 5y equals 20. There are a couple of ways that you can find the slope of this line. One way is I can solve this equation 4y. So I subtract the 4x from both sides. Divide every term by 5 to get that y by itself. We get negative 4/5 x plus 4. And our slope is whatever's in front of the x, which here would be negative 4/5. Now, some instructors may use the formula slope equals negative a over b. A is what's in front of the x term, so here a is 4, and b is what's in front of the y term, so b is 5, and you get the same slope either way. Parallel lines, because we were told that our line here was parallel lines have the same slope. My second step is to use what we call the point slope form of a line. Be sure you ask the instructor that you are working with whether or not they require their students to memorize the formulas, because they may require their students to memorize slope formula, point slope formula. The students definitely will need to know the difference between standard form and slope-intercept form. I'm ready now to fill in to my formula. y1 is the y-coordinate of my point. The y-coordinate of the point was 2. My slope is going to be negative 4/5. And x1 is the x-coordinate of the point, which is 1. Now, I like to get rid of my fraction first, so I'm going to multiply both sides of my equation by 5. And on the right side, that 5 is understood to be 5 over 1. Distribute the 5 on the left side, gives us 5y minus 10. And on the right side, the 5's cancel out, and I've got this negative 4 to distribute. Gives me negative 4x plus 4. Now, this particular problem asks for the answer in standard form. So that means that x and y have to be on the same side and that x needs to be positive. And by the way, x and y will have to be on the left side. So to make sure x and y are on the left side, I'm going to add the 4x to both sides. My constant needs to be on the other side, so then I add the 10 to both sides. And my answer is 4x plus 5y equals 14. Now, what if you're going to standard form? What if we had gotten, say, negative 4x plus 5y equals 14? In standard form, the x has to be positive, so what we would do is divide every term by negative 1, and that changes the sign of every term, and so now that 4x, the coefficient of the x, that a is positive. All right, so let's look at part B. In part B, we have the point negative 1, negative 3. We're told that we are perpendicular to a given line. And this time we want to write our answer in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form, by the way, has y completely by itself. It's y equals mx plus b, where m is our slope and b is the y-intercept. And the y-intercept we write as the point 0b. So first, I need to find my slope. So I use the line that I'm given. Solve for y to find your slope. So subtract the 2x from both sides. Divide both sides by 3. Gives us y equals negative 2/3 x plus 1/3. Our slope is the coefficient of the x, so here that would be negative 2/3. But this time the problem told me that I am perpendicular. So with perpendicular, we have negative reciprocals. What that means is I flip the fraction, so that would be 3/2, and I change the sign. So notice the sign has changed from a negative to a positive. And now I'm ready to use the point slope form of a line. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And fill in. My slope here is 3/2. y1 is negative 3. That's the y-coordinate of the point. And x1 is negative 1. That's the x-coordinate of the point. Again, I like to go ahead and multiply by the LCD to get rid of the fraction. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. A negative and a negative makes this y plus 3 on the left side. And on the right side, I can write the 2 as 2 over 1 when I multiply the right side by 2. Again, in parentheses, a negative and a negative, that's going to make that a plus 1. Distribute the 2 on the left side, so that gives us 2y and plus 6. On the right side, the 2's cancel out. And distribute your 3, that gives us 3x plus 3. Now my problem asks me to go to slope-intercept form, so that means I need to get the y by itself here. Subtract the 6 from both sides. Gives us 2y on the left side, and we have 3x minus 3 on the right side. And divide every term by 2. And the equation of our line is y equals 3/2 x minus 3/2. Now look at number 3. Number 3 asks us to graph this linear function. The f of x is the same thing as y. And so what I notice here is that this line is in the slope-intercept form. So my slope is the coefficient of x, that would be 2/5. And my y-intercept here would be the point 0, negative 3. Math labs may ask for just negative 3, but I know for most instructors on the test, they will write the y-intercept written as a point, and so it would be the point 0, negative 3. I'm going to sketch my axes. And I'm going to go ahead and very lightly draw my grid lines in, because that's going to help me as I count with the slope. So I start by plotting my y-intercept, and my y-intercept here is the point 0, -3. So it'd be right here. My slope is 2/5. Now, if my slope is positive, that 2 tells me to go up. 2. If the slope is negative, the top number would tell me to go down. And so from the y-intercept, I'm going to count up 1, 2. The bottom number tells me to go to the right. And the bottom number will always tell you to go to the right. And so I go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so here's our new point. Connect the points to make your line. The point on the left is the point 0, -3, and the point on the right is the point 5, -1. This problem also asks us to give the domain and the range. For domain, I look at this. This is what we call a continuous function, so it has no holes or gaps in it, no jumps either. We have an arrow on the left side, so that means we keep on going out to the left. That's -infinity. And we have an arrow on the right side, so the graph keeps on going out to the right. That is +infinity. And so our domain would be -infinity to +infinity. For the range, I look from bottom to top. The same arrow that goes to the left also points down, so that's -infinity. And the same arrow that goes to the right also points up, so that is +infinity. And so our range would also be -infinity to +infinity. Number 4. We have the function f of x equals 3. Again, f of x is the same thing as y, and so we'd have the line y equals 3 here. Draw your axes, and I'm going to count 3 on each direction. When we have a y equals a number is always a horizontal line. And you have x equals a number, it is always a vertical line. And so y equals 3, I'm going to come to 3 on the y-axis, and I'm going to draw my line left and right. On the test, the students will probably have to give more than one point, and so they can just come left or right and find another point. And so we have the point 1, 3, and we have the point 0, 3. The domain here is from -infinity because of the arrow on the left to +infinity because of the arrow on the right. There are no holes or gaps here. And the range here is just 3 because that's the only y value that we ever have. Number 5 asks us to give the slope, the x-intercept, the y-intercept, and to graph each of these. For slope, as I mentioned earlier, we can use the formula -a over b, or you can solve for y. A is whatever's in front of the x. So A here would be 3, and B is in front of the y, so B would be 6. And -3 over 6 simplifies to -1/2. To find the x-intercept, we plug in 0 for y. So I have 3 times x plus 6 times 0. 6 times 0 is 0. And 3x plus 0 is 3x. Divide both sides by 3, and we get that x is 4. Again, students on the test will need to write their answer as a point. The x is 4, and we plugged in 0 for y. And so the x-intercept would be the point 4, 0. To find the y-intercept, we plug in 0 for x. So I plug in 0 for x, and I solve for y. 3 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 6y is 6y. Divide both sides by 6, and we get that y is 2. Again, the y-intercept needs to be written as a point. We plugged in 0 for x, and we got out 2 for y. We have 2 points, so we can graph our line. And I had the point 0, 2 was my y-intercept, and I had the point 4, 0, I believe, for the x-intercept. And connect your 2 points to make your line. In part B, we've got the line x minus 4y equals 12. To find the slope, we can use the formula negative a over b. A is 1 here because there's understood to be a 1 in front of the x. B is negative 4 because we have negative 4 in front of our y. And so our slope is 1/4. To find the x-intercept, we plug in 0 for y. So I'd have x minus 4 times 0 equals 12. 4 times 0 is 0, and x minus 0 is x. And so our x-intercept here would be the point 12, 0. To find the y-intercept, we plug in 0 for x. So we'd have 0 minus 4y equals 12. 0 minus 4y is negative 4y. Divide both sides by negative 4, and we get that y is negative 3. Write that y-intercept as a point. We plugged in 0 for x, and we got out negative 3 for y. And then plot the points and draw your graph. So I draw my axes. I may count 3 or 2 in either direction. I've got the point 2, 0 and the point 0, negative 3. And connect your points to make your line. Number 6 asks us to graph, and we're asked to plot and label 2 points on the line. And so in part A, we have point that passes through the point, or line that passes through the point negative 2, 4, and has a slope of 0. A slope of 0, this is going to be a horizontal line. I'm going to draw my axes and count 4 each direction. And I plot my point, so I have the point negative 2 and 4. Because I have a horizontal line, I go left or right, and it doesn't matter how far we go left or right. And so I'm just going to come over to the axis, the y-axis that is, and sketch my graph. So I have the point negative 2, 4, and then the point on the y-axis where this line hits the y-axis would be the point 0, 4. Part B, we have a line that passes through the point 1, negative 3, and has a slope that is undefined. When our slope is undefined, that tells us we have a vertical line, so that is straight up and down. I'm going to draw my axes, and I'm going to count 3 in each direction. And plot the point. So I have the point 1, -3. A vertical line goes straight up and down, so I can go up and down either way, and I can go how many ever I want to go up or down. I'm going to go all the way up to the x-axis. And connect your 2 points to make your line. Be sure to label those points, so that point where the line crosses the x-axis is the point 1, 0, and the point that I was given is the point 1, -3. Part C, we have the point 1, 4, and we have a slope of 1/2. I'm going to count 6. And just like I did before with the graph, I'm going to go ahead and very lightly draw in my grid lines to help me count. And I plot my point. I've got the point 1, 4. My slope is positive, so the top number tells me to go up. So from this point, I'm going to count up 1. And the bottom number tells me to go to the right. So I'm going to go to the right, 1, 2. And the coordinates of this point would be 3, 5. And connect the points to make your graph. And last but not least, we have part D. We're given the point -2, -2. And this time we have a slope that is negative. I'm going to draw my axes. And again, I'm going to go ahead and very lightly draw my grid line so I have graph paper. Plot your point. We've got the point -2, -2. This time my slope is negative, so the top number tells me to go down, and I go down 1, 2, 3. The bottom number tells me to go to the right, and so I go to the right, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the coordinates of that point would be 2, -5. Connect your 2 points to draw your line. If you have questions, let me know. Good luck on any midterms that you may have, and have a great